You'll ever wonder what LaToya Luckett been up to since she got kicked out of Destiny's Child? No, me neither. Because even in this BET movie, she's just a side character. Tiffanie Cooper is engaged to big-shot entrepreneur Damon King after dating for a year and a half. Tiffanie was Damon's employee at King Enterprise. Damon is supportive of Tiffanie opening her own business, a spa called Urban Utopia. However, she doesn't like how Damon is too supportive, to the point that he makes the decisions for her. Tiffanie also has an issue with Damon always having the final say on everything, including their wedding. She wants an intimate wedding at his pastor grandpa's church, but they're going to have a big wedding at their house because that's what Damon wants. Their wedding planner, Phyllis, shows her some of the things that will be at the wedding, and Phyllis talks about how she became a wedding planner after her girl group fired her. When it comes to bedroom time, Tiffanie feels lost because she doesn't feel excited like other people. As a solution, she tries to be kinky, but Damon asks her to be proper. She looks up ways to spice it up because it feels like she's sleeping with a pastor. Tiffanie initiates role-playing while Damon is playing pool, but Damon tells her that he has already done kinky stuff before and prefers to leave the past behind. He adds that they don't have to do that because their love is pure, leaving her no choice but to cover herself up. Damon asks Tiffanie to pick up his best man, Trey Taylor, who is fresh out of prison. When she expresses her discomfort, he asks her to give Trey a chance because he's a changed man. When Tiffany's friend and secretary Sonia visits Tiffanie at home, Tiffanie complains and compares her bedroom life to the vanilla yogurt she's eating, prompting Sonia to tell her that vanilla yogurt isn't bad. Sonia also advises her to stop asking the internet for advice. Girl, don't listen to Sonia with her wig looking like Ma. Shortly after Sonia leaves, Trey arrives since he took an earlier flight and rings the doorbell, startling Tiffanie. She accidentally drops the glass of juice she's holding, and she cuts her finger while attempting to pick up the shards. Trey wipes the yogurt off the corner of her lips, tastes it, and correctly guesses that it's vanilla yogurt.
What's wrong with vanilla yogurt?
It's boring.
My coochie is steaming for a former inmate. This is not a good sign. When she asks him if he's going to cause trouble, he starts to leave, prompting her to immediately apologize. While Trey treats Tiffany's hand, Tiffanie expresses concern about Trey's record hurting Damon's image. Trey slowly moves closer to Tiffanie as he tells her that he needs to watch himself because prison deprived him of anything beautiful for so long. Tension between them starts to build up, and it's turning me on, but Damon arrives. As Trey and Damon happily hug, Trey looks at Tiffanie. Trey starts talking about their past, but Damon stops him as he doesn't want Tiffanie to know. Trey then notices how Damon speaks for Tiffanie, so he tells him to let her speak. After Damon shares that Tiffanie was raised by her grandparents, he leaves to get more tea for Trey. Trey then tells Tiffanie that he lost his parents too, reaches for her hand, and tells her that he's just there if she needs someone to talk to. He quickly lets go when Damon returns. Miss Tiffanie, girl, that man got no real job. You better stay with the boring Damon. After Tiffanie leaves the two men alone, Trey thanks Damon for putting him in a nice hotel. Damon tells him that that is his and Tiffany's favorite spot and that she's going to stay there the night before the wedding because she's traditional. Damon promises Trey that he has his back and that they'll discuss their unfinished business after the wedding. Tiffanie meets with her grandma for the wedding fitting. Rattled after meeting Trey, Tiffanie shares with her grandma that since Damon is the only guy she's ever been with, she has no one to compare him to, and she's worried that their bedroom life is lacking. Talking about your coochie satisfaction to your grandma is crazy work. Grandma honestly responds that since she got married young, there were times when she got interested in other men and not giving in was challenging. She says she keeps on reminding herself that their vows aren't just for each other, but for God. Warner, Tiffany's contractor for her spa, tells Tiffanie that her spa needs rewiring, which is expensive. When Tiffanie refuses Damon's financial help, Trey volunteers to do it for free. Shortly after, Damon privately asks Tiffanie not to hire Trey because he wants to offer him a job, and she agrees. However, Trey later talks to Tiffanie about the rewiring.
You need me to do your rewiring.
And she ends up secretly hiring him. Your girl is thirsty for a one-night stand. The man even sniffs her up like the crack cocaine he snorted in prison, and she's smitten by this gesture. The next day, Damon finally promises Tiffanie that he'll stop helping her unless she asks, because he can't forget how hurt Tiffanie looked during one of their meetings. They reconcile and he sniffs her up, but this does nothing for Miss Girl's coochie because she a hoochie. When Sonia texts Tiffany the time of her bridal shower, Tiffany informs her that she's going to be late because something came up. Tiffany heads to Trey's hotel room and tells him that she came by to talk about the light fixtures. During the discussion, Trey, who's only wearing a towel, winces and says he thinks he pulled something while playing basketball. He then makes her touch a spot around his stomach, which builds up more tension. That man fine, but you got a good man at home. When her phone beeps, she snaps out of it and quickly leaves. Tiffany arrives at the party and privately tells Sonia that her car wouldn't start, but Sonia quickly clocks her lie. Later, after asking if sex gets better or worse after the wedding, Tiffany asks Sonia and her 3 friends if they've ever had an affair. After Tiffany shares that a man touched her wrist and grazed her neck with his lips, one of the friends shares that she had cheated on her husband. She advises Tiffany not to cheat on Damon because their relationship will never be the same. Damon presents Trey with a contract, offering him a job, and Trey can't believe he'll be able to earn that much money in a clean way. Tiffany proposes to be celibate until their wedding, but Damon thinks it's ridiculous because their wedding is in a couple of days. When he asks why she's acting strangely lately, an upset Tiffany leaves the bedroom and sleeps on the living room couch, where she dreams about getting her pretty girl rocked by Trey. The next morning, Damon agrees to be celibate because Tiffany's grandpa, Pastor Cooper, had told them that compromise is one of the bedrocks of marriage. When Damon asks if she still loves him, she says she does. He then asks her to come to the food tasting with him at 4 and tells her that he has a surprise for her. Tiffany continues to fantasize about Trey, which negatively affects her business and her friendship with Sonia. Later, Trey buys Tiffany a sandwich and tells her about his son. When he asks why she decided to open a spa, she tells him that self-care is so important that even a simple head massage can do wonders. When he says he never had one before, she gives him a head massage and they end up kissing. I just know he wanted a different type of head massage. Meanwhile, Damon, who is waiting at the food tasting with their wedding planner, thinks Tiffany is just caught up at work, so he makes the decisions. Later at the fitting with her grandma and Sonia, Tiffany remembers that she's supposed to meet Damon and panics. Sonia calms her down and assures her that she'll take care of it. After Trey accepts Damon's job offer, Damon shares that Tiffany has been acting strangely and didn't show up at the food tasting. Trey tells him that she was at the spa, and he knows that because she hired him to do the lights. Computa, make these two super gay and super... Since Tiffany declined Damon's help, secretly hired Trey, and didn't show up at the food tasting, Damon thinks that Tiffany doesn't want to marry him. When Damon brings this up later, Tiffany apologizes and swears that she just forgot, but he thinks she's either distant or annoyed. She finally honestly tells him that she thinks he's only with her because she's good for his image, given that she's a church girl and he molded her into his idea of a perfect woman. When she suggests postponing the wedding, he disagrees, reminds her that the wedding is in 48 hours, and says that they have their entire lives to work on things. Tiffany awakens in the middle of the night and sees a text from Trey asking her to meet him at Urban Utopia. When she gets there, he happily shows her the motion sensor lights, but she fires him, saying everything was fine until he came. He argues that maybe his presence just brought to the surface the cracks in their relationship, and they end up kissing. Girl, that man used to do crack. The day before the wedding, Sonia notices Tiffany and Trey talking, telling each other their whereabouts later in the evening. That night at the party the couple throws, attended by all their loved ones, Sonia notices Trey whispering to Tiffany. Sonia privately asks Tiffany if she slept with Trey, to which Tiffany says she didn't, but she wants to. Sonia then reminds her that she's about to marry the man she loves, and a fine one at that. Knowing Trey will be at the hotel bar until midnight, Tiffany shows up in a sexy dress and leads Trey to her room. The moment the elevator closes, they start making out, and Trey carries her to her bed. When Tiffany tells him she wants him, giving consent to go further, Trey tells her that he wants her to imagine him when she makes love with Damon on their wedding night. He says seducing her is his revenge for Damon screwing him over 7 years ago. Trey then leaves Tiffany sobbing as she's filled with regret and not filled with Trey's mayonnaise. The next morning, Grandma checks on Tiffany, who had been ignoring Damon's calls and is staring blankly into space. As Trey is fixing Damon's tie, he tells him that he fooled around with someone the night before. When Damon starts bringing up what happened 7 years ago, Trey asks him to leave the past behind. After Tiffany informs Grandma about what happened, she says she's worried he's going to tell Damon. Grandma tells her not to let Trey win. Tiffany walks down the aisle and tries to push through with the wedding, but when she sees Trey next to Damon, she remembers what Trey told her. prompting her to run away. Damon runs after her, and she confesses to cheating on him. She apologizes, but he angrily breaks up with her. Sometimes love knocks you down. Just get back up when it knocks you down. Knocks you down. At church, Pastor Cooper preaches that God will not abandon his children despite them giving in to temptation, which gives comfort to Tiffanie. After church, Sonia encourages Tiffanie to open Urban Utopia, as she wants her not to give up and not let Trey win. Miss Sonia also still wants a job after this mess. Tiffanie thanks Trey for forcing her to confront things she has been avoiding. She says her only regret is hurting Damon because he's a good man, and then she starts praying that God frees Trey from all his anger. Girl, you need to pray for yourself. Since Damon doesn't pick up her calls, Tiffanie leaves him a message, apologizing and telling him that she'll never stop loving him. Through his men, Damon discovers that Tiffanie cheated on him with Trey. When confronted, Trey reminds Damon that he abandoned him that night, but Damon reminds him that he warned him about the cops watching the spot, but he didn't listen. Trey tells Damon that he didn't sleep with Tiffanie, but he could have. Provoked, Damon fights Trey, but decides not to shoot him for the sake of Trey's son. Damon warns Trey never to step foot in his city again. Damon asks Tiffanie why she cheated on him with Trey, to which she says he was just a distraction. After Tiffanie tells him that she wants him, Damon, despite his heartbreak, admits to being miserable without her. Damon and Tiffanie start over. They are more honest with each other, they decide to remain celibate, and Tiffanie opens Urban Utopia. 1 year later, they wed. While they are expecting, they move to a new home. Oh, hell nah. I would not want to get back together with her. Once a trifler, always a trifler. Miss Thang was not satisfied in the bedroom and failed to communicate anything to Damon. What would y'all do? And what did you guys think of this one?
Did y'all like that one? Honey, well, make sure you like and leave us a comment. I try to respond to as many as I can. And if you like Tubi, Lifetime, or just straight up trifling movies, make sure you subscribe for real. For more videos, you can click here or here.